we're going to be having a discussion about diaspora time now. At least that was the plan. We're supposed to have Mr. Keith Romans and Mr. Dermot Sutherland here with us tonight, but they're not here yet. I think Mr. Romans has a family emergency, so he's not going to be able to make it tonight. And we're not able to reach Mr. Dermot. In any event, we're still going to have a chat. I've invited others to jump on. I just sent out a little SOS and asked anyone who wants to jump on to chat with me tonight about the diaspora, about your involvement in the life of the Jamaican people, the life of Jamaica, the development of Jamaica. I think for far too long, the diaspora has been left out of the thick of things. It's as though you're a second-class citizen because you have been forced in many instances to leave our shores to become an economic refugee in another country in order to, make something of yourself, in order to survive the economic challenges which are posed to people here. It's a fact of life that life is very difficult here in Jamaica. It's a fact that we have too few opportunities, too many instances of crime. It's a fact that parents are very uncomfortable raising their children here for a number of reasons. It's a fact that our school system has not been doing so well. It's a fact that many of us are afraid of our healthcare system. So it's only natural that people are going to choose to want to leave Jamaica and go elsewhere to live because they're trying to make better for themselves. And you can't blame them. So the UIC has taken a very strong position in favor of the Jamaican living abroad, wanting to ensure that they have the same equal rights as Jamaicans living at home, wanting to create a more inclusive Jamaica that embraces Jamaicans around the world and build a system that gets all of us involved in the business of nation building. So tonight I see we have one person that's joined already, it says Michael Mack. Good evening, Mr. Mack. Can you hear me? You can unmute your mic. And if you can come on camera, that's also good. If not, that's okay. Can you hear me, sir? Michael Mack, can you unmute and join me?
I am greetings, everybody.
Greetings.
I'm actually cooking. I'm listening, but I'm engaged.
You're in the gym, you said?
No, I'm actually in the kitchen. But I'm
in the kitchen. Oh, you're cooking. All right.
I'm
wonderful,
cooking, yeah.
Wonderful. All right. So you just want to listen in.
For now, I'm listening. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Where are you calling in from?
I know we're waiting for people to join. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So Mr. Mack is hanging out over there in, I think it's Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So tonight, I was hoping to speak with Mr. Keith Romans and Mr. Dermot Sutherland. The two of them wanted to talk to me about diaspora issue. So this meeting was actually created because of a discussion I was having with Mr. Sutherland a few days ago. And it was a wonderful conversation. It took us almost an hour. And he was taking me through his history as a boy, because he was pretty much a young man during the before Jamaica became independent, so-called, in 1962. So he was here and he was, he went through that episode and we were talking about that experience. He migrated to the UK and then eventually ended up in the US. He came back to Jamaica and then migrated shortly thereafter again. And so that history of his and how he saw Jamaica and how Jamaica evolved over that time, I found it to be quite intriguing. So I wanted him to come on the program and for us to talk about his experience and then link that to the experience, your experience now, and where Jamaica is as a country and how that links with the whole diaspora experience. And so tonight I was hoping to have that chat with him. Then Mr. Romans, who is also an avid supporter of the UIC, who I've had many exchanges with. He's in Texas. And so we're going to get his perspective and talk about it. So I have a number of points here I want to share with you from a UIC policy perspective. Now, the UIC as a political movement and party is not your typical party. We don't play politics as usual. Most of our talks are based on solutions. I personally do not enjoy simply bashing the government or bashing the opposition or behaving disgracefully or seeking to poke fun at. I'm more interested in solutions. How do we solve the problems we face as a nation? I'm also very interested in history. What brought us to this point? Where are we coming from? How we got here? That is more important to me than simply playing the game of politics, playing the drama of politics, engaging in the theatrics of politics. Because at the end of the day, we can play the games and the theatrics, but what really matters is how have we substantially moved the needle? How have we caused the nation to move from what the current Prime Minister promised us, to move from poverty to prosperity? So far, he has not been able to do that. I mean, in fact, many more Jamaicans are poorer today than they were before he took office. And the same thing for the previous Prime Minister. After she left office, the people were poorer, more poor than before she took office. And the same thing for Bruce Golden before her. The people became poorer after he left office, and the same before him. So, you know, in a sense, we're not really getting where we need to get. But I see another person on the live here with me. I'm on Zoom, right? So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not seeing your comments right now, but somebody might, you know, send them through to me here. But welcome, Miss Janet Trakanowski. Is that you? Is Sister Janet? Janet, you're joining us? You have to unmute your mic if you're speaking, eh? All right, I'm not sure whether or not. Okay. Okay, so it's not Sister Janet. It looks like we have two Naikas here. No worries. Yeah, so as I was saying, you know, I'm really interested in the solutions. So when I was inspired to begin the process of creating the UIC, I spent much of my time studying the history of Jamaica's politics, the history of our people. And in all of my studies, my focus was on how do we fix the problem of corruption, the problem of poverty, the problem of crime. How do you fix it? Sometimes people get into politics and they have basic ideas of what they want to see done. But oftentimes, those ideas are not informed by actual careful study. They have a hunch, they have a feeling, and all of us know the solution. You talk to anybody, they know how to fix everything. But the truth is, it requires more than a casual observation of the problem. It requires careful analysis. And sometimes you may not have the tool to do that analysis. You may not be economically inclined, so you don't necessarily understand the details of economics. You may not be financially inclined and having studied, so you may not understand finance deep enough. You may not have studied history enough. Sometimes people repeat history because they don't know history. So they'll offer a solution which has been tried and proven to be a failure several times, but it's a nice sounding solution. They've heard it before, or they dream it up and think it's the first time it's being advocated, but it's something that's been tried and has failed in many ways. Most people, when they look at a country from an economic standpoint and the challenges, they have very similar solutions. If they see crime getting out of hand, they say, bring back the death penalty, because they're sure that if you start to kill more criminals, you're going to solve the crime problem. Now, from I was a boy growing up in Jamaica, down in downtown Kingston, a place called Blake Road, close to Eastern Street and Wildman Street, I've seen police killing bad men, I mean, shooting them down, hunting them down. I've seen citizens get excited that the next boy dead again, and so on. And it's as if as they kill them, more just mushroom up. So what is the real problem? What is the true cause of that? Why is it that we're so good at producing criminals at home and chasing away our best and brightest to other countries. Why? Now, I spend the time to study and understand the causal factors, what is causing the problem. And believe it or not, the root cause of 99% of our problems here in Jamaica is a simple two-word answer, which is easy to say, but not so easy to fix. It's called bad governance. Believe it or not, very, very simple, bad governance. If you have good governance in a country, and good is relative because, every country have some degree of governance. It can be so bad that you're all the way into anarchy. It can be so tight that you're in a strict form of dictatorship, or it can be one that is fairly balanced and allows the citizens a great measure of freedom, but still providing the kinds of institutions that would protect and safeguard their physical life, their physical property, and afford them a pleasurable environment in which to live. Now, there are all kinds of factors that drives this, So for example, in some countries, they benefited first from slavery. So they were involved in the colonialism, imperialism. They go out into other countries. They dominated the people. They extracted their wealth at a low cost and therefore built up a profitable and very prosperous society back in their own country. So you have a UK, a France, a Germany, a Netherlands, a Belgium, countries that exploited other countries and used the resources to enrich their countries. Now, once you've gotten to a certain level of enrichment, you have certain refinements coming in. They might then introduce going from a form of dictatorship called monarchy. They may eventually morph into a democracy or a constitutional monarchy, or something which is less obvious of a dictatorship and more tending towards some form of democracy. There are certain rights which become inherent. You have workers' rights and children rights and family rights and women rights, and gradually certain pieces come into place, and you call them now a sophisticated society. Say, yeah, here's a society which is civilized. But of course, that civilization was built on a hidden or not so hidden factor, which is slavery, and different forms of exploitation of other countries and other people, domination like they do in India, under the British and so on. So if you study carefully, you'll see that there are a number of factors, but nonetheless, they have now created a fairly safe country, orderly country, clean country, and the people are fairly free, and their industries get to develop, oftentimes through forms of protectionism. So for example, they will export their products to other countries, but block other countries' products from coming into their countries. They'll create destabilization in other countries so they can control their leaders and extract the wealth of that country at a fraction of the cost, turn it around and make valuable products and then sell it back to these countries and poor people. So there are all kinds of factors which drives countries becoming more or less wealthy and civilized. So we can't just look at it and say, oh, what they're doing now is what created the wealth and stability you see. So a country which now has partisan politics, for example, and people going out to vote and having campaigns and having private money funding those campaigns. And you say, well, if they are doing it, then we should be able to do it too, and it's okay. Not necessarily, because they're coming from a different base. Their base is built up from, as I said before, colonialism, imperialism, exploitation, slavery. And it's after building that rich base that they put the icing on the cake, a veneer of democracy, and all of that. And so now we see that and think that is the reason for the success. It's not the reason. It's now a form of keeping the society in a stabilized form. Like here in Jamaica, we did not have the benefit of enslaving another nation or other people, but we do have the veneer of democracy on top of a layer now. But that democracy only serves to keep the people in check. And funny enough, it also serves to keep an elite in power and the vast majority struggling at the bottom and suffering. A few will escape gradually, either through migrating or figuring out how to work very well in that corrupt environment, become connected with certain politicians who are connected to certain wealthy individuals, or through criminal underworld activities, organized crime, and they might float to the top. So I'll give you an example. You might have a person who is a bright person in a community, a bright boy in our community, and bright. A politician come down there and take him on in wings and say, yeah, man, work with me. And that bright boy help him to get votes and stuff like that. He becomes so close to the politician that eventually the politician trusts him very much and use him as a front. And they set up a company and they steal money from the taxpayers' coffers and funnel that through this company with this bright boy, who otherwise a poor boy, from the bottom, and wouldn't reach anywhere otherwise. But now, because of this illicit arrangement, he now find himself with money that has been stolen from the tax coffers in different forms and shapes. And he now own a store, then a gas station, get some property through the political shenanigans and corruption, then own a few properties here and there, get access to some contracts to fix road and stuff and siphon off some and give some back to the party and use some, build himself a hardware store or two, maybe a block factory as well. And over time, in about 20 years, between when he was 25 and now he's 45, 50, he's now seen as a relatively wealthy, upstanding citizen. But he has not earned that money. He has just been a part of the corrupt system that allowed him to gain access to capital, access to means, and by that way, he became somebody of means in the society. Okay? So that's how a few persons escape the poverty, but the vast majority don't get that. There's also a very tribal set now. They would have gotten small benefits throughout the whole process. So they got maybe, the politician gave their children some school fee or some school books or some lunch money. Maybe through their connection with the party, they end up with a small plot of land or a house, a small house, or some benefits. So they become very loyal. They pass on that loyalty to their children who said, the manly want to get this or Siaga want to get this and the party and so on. So you build a tribal nature in the society. And so a few persons get a little bit of benefit, not enough to make them anything significant, but enough to make them loyal to the party forever and to transfer that loyalty to their children as well. And so over time, you build up that kind of society. So you have a strata, you have at the very top, the rich and powerful. Some got their riches legitimately, some maybe not so legitimate. Then you have the political elite, that is their link, the people they put at the face to represent them, to come to us and get our votes to legitimize them in office. And then the two feed each other, right? Then you have a layer below them now, which are the party animals, those people who have been led to become very tribal, and they will die for the party, so to speak, a small number. And so they're going to be there for the party for the most part until death do they part. Then you have the vast majority of the people now, which are the working class and the rest of the poor and so on, and they struggle and try to make ends meet. They often, while they know that something isn't right and they may have seen or heard of a few instances of corruption, they don't fully understand what is really going on. Even if they think they do, they don't fully understand. And that is why occasionally they will support one or the other party. They will look at some small good that's done or some good intentions that were announced by one or the other. And they say, oh, they prefer this one or that one. But they don't really realize what is really going on. They don't understand that this is bigger than their small thinking is. And if they were to ever dig into it fully, they would begin to see that it's a massive game that is being played and has been played with their lives, the lives of their children and their children's children. So the UIC has spent its time understanding, unearthing, and sharing this with everyone. All right, so I see Mr. DERMOT Sutherland is beginning to join us, which is good, because then we can go into the diaspora discussion. But it's always good to have that background when you are thinking about how Jamaica is being developed and is supposed to be developed. It will help you to understand the UIC solution a little bit better. What the UIC has been able to make clear to Jamaican people, to the extent that the Jamaican people hear us, because we're generally blocked from the Jamaican people. We don't get carried by the news media, so you're not hearing us on the news deliberately. They have made it deliberate to make sure you don't hear much from us on the news at all. No matter what we have to say, you just won't hear it. Whether we put a press release out or not, whether we announce something on our Facebook page or Twitter, you just don't hear it in the news media. And that is by design. They are very skillful in making sure that Jamaican people don't hear much from the UIC. Similarly, we're shadow banned on social media platforms. So even though we're putting stuff out, it doesn't necessarily make it through because the name UIC carries a stigma on the social platform. We're reported all the times by people. Believe me, they're much smarter than you can imagine. They're very smart and very effective at ensuring that the UIC does not get the traction that it needs. And so when people look on and they say, oh, the UIC is not getting any traction, so then people get discouraged and so on. They don't realize that it's we who have to do it. The UIC is our party, so we the people have to take ownership and not allow the powers that be to successfully silence us, because we're bringing such deep, truthful, transformative awareness to the people, to the nation. And so the UIC has exposed the role of the PSOJ oligarchs in Jamaica's politics. We have made it clear and brought it to the attention of people that really the real kingmaker, the real power behind the throne is the PSOJ. And particularly a small group within that group. I call them the PSOJ oligarchs. They're the ones that fund these two parties, such that when an election is contested, it doesn't matter which of the two that wins, because the PSOJ oligarchs, being the funder of both, being the controller of both, will always be in power. So they don't have to run for office. They don't have to outdo anybody on the campaign trail. They just leave the two parties to be our distraction, to provide the entertainment, and we get excited about it, and we're like, oh, we're this or we're that, and we're excited, and we carry on while they're laughing in the boardroom, drinking their champagne and enjoying themselves, knowing that when the election results come out, those who are anxious to see if it's their party that won, the PSOJ oligarchs are never anxious, because it doesn't matter who wins, they are still in charge. That's a very powerful position to have, a super position to have. Now, the people don't realize this. The people get caught up with, whether this party is better or that party is better, not realizing that they're just two controlled oppositions. The PSOJ oligarchs controls both of them. So it doesn't matter who wins. Yes, the flavor might be different. And for some people, it's a serious issue which one wins, because the more connected you are to the party from a corruption standpoint, you want your party to win and you'll do whatever it takes. So if you are from this party and if they win, you're going to get job, you're going to get contracts, you're going to get special benefits, no matter how small. If you're aligned over here, son, you're going to get a little food out of the process, then clearly you're going to work very hard for that to win. You're going to be very sorry if it loses. You're going to be very angry at those who say anything bad about your party. So it looks real and feel real to the casual observer. On the other side, it's the very, very same thing. They too have the same motivation, the same drive, the same concern, the same stresses if their group loses, because whatever small benefits they're going to get, they will fight for that. there's also the emotional value. You know, if you are grown up as a member or as a member of the tribe of one or the other, even if you're not getting any immediate benefits, you're emotionally wrapped up in it because you were conditioned as a child. Maybe your mother and father was for this party, your grandmother, and so that is now driving you, you see. And so the emotional part is there. And here comes the UIC. Now we bring in the rational part and say, okay, the emotional part or the corruption part, let's step back and be rational. Now, whether you're of the emotional school or you're of the corrupt school, meaning you're benefiting corruptly or you're benefiting emotionally, one thing is clear. If you were to ever pause and look at the reality, you'll realize that at the end of the day, your country is not developing into what it ought to be and can be. And you and your family may very well fall prey to the kind of country which results from the system that we're talking about. When you have that kind of system going on, you know, you may get a benefit emotionally or corruptly from the party that you support and it wins, but you are undoing the benefit by the kind of country which it creates. The unsafe country, the dirty, unclean country, the disorderly country, the poverty-stricken country, the underdeveloped country, with hospitals that you don't want to go to, with police officers that you're afraid of, with schools that you wish you could take your children out of, and so on. And so these are the kind of challenges that we have. And it's my hope and prayer that the UIC will be able to convince you, whether you're from the emotional school or the corruption school or both, or you've just been, what you say now, turned off from the whole process. We want to invite you and encourage you and educate you, empower you to come back in and take a fresh look at the political system in Jamaica and then say, you know what, it makes sense for us to elect the UIC in order to bring Jamaica to what it could be, a safe, clean, and orderly country where everyone can live, earn, and retire with dignity in true liberty. That's what any sane person would want. I know some people say it can't happen because they've seen it long enough and think this can't change. There are others who don't think they want it to change because they're satisfied with their corrupt connection there. And there are others who are so emotionally connected to their party that they can't ever hope for anything different. But the UIC is here to bring that hope, bring that awareness, and to hopefully provide that leadership for us to transition from what we are into what we could be. And so I see Mr. Sutherland coming on. Hope he will be able to join us. While he's doing that, what I want to do now is to just share with you a little bit on the UIC system. I want to get to the diaspora piece, but I'm hoping I can get some diaspora persons on. So Naika, please try to get me some people on if possible on the Zoom platform so we can actually have a chat. So I'm going to share with you my screen and in this, talk to you a little bit about the UIC's model of governance, what we are going to introduce should you help us to get elected so that we can transform Jamaica. Our, what do you call it now, tagline says one Jamaica stronger together. But before I even get into that, if you look at our logo carefully, it says UIC, United Independence Congress. What does this mean? Well, the logo itself tells you something. It's the shape of the island of Jamaica in the form of two hands shaking, two hands, a handshake, grasping, two hands holding on, signifying a unity of the country, a uniting of the country. We have been led to become the enemies of each other, broken into two factions. And the UIC is saying, let's bring the country back together. Let's become one Jamaica again. because we're stronger together. So the name United Independence Congress signifies our willingness, our wish, our desire, our work to unite the people to become independent thinkers and no longer partisan thinkers, and to become a Congress where we sit around the table and make good policies and decisions, as opposed to sitting on different sides of the aisles and fighting each other as tribes. So I want to end that system and bring in a system of unity. So one Jamaica, stronger together. That's what this all means. Our vision is very simple. Our vision is to create a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. It's a simple statement, a simple vision statement, but I think it's a powerful one. A Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. Just think about it. A Jamaica that is so designed to bring out the best in all its people. It has an education system which is designed not to create mere workers, but to create thinkers, inventors, innovators. A Jamaica that doesn't just create cannon fodder or wage slaves, but rather a Jamaica that creates well-developed citizens who have the mind, body, and personality necessary to achieve great things, to live in a highly civilized and productive manner. Not just some, but all. A Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. That's our vision for Jamaica. That's the vision of the UIC. Our mission is directed by that vision. And it says our mission is to create a non-partisan constitutional Republic of Jamaica that protects individual liberty and promotes personal responsibility. Another way of saying this is to protect your individual sovereignty and to promote accountability, personal accountability. So for us, for you to have that, you need to have a special kind of system. Now, we have been trained by our colonial masters to have a so much as on the whims of our political leaders who do with us as they please. This system that we have created, the UIC system, is non-partisan. It trains us, or will retrain us, to not be partisan, but to be policy-driven, to be pragmatically driven, to have a constitutional republic, which means the rule of law, which fully protects our individual rights within the Constitution and from the government and others who might seek to take them, and to have that undergirded by two core principles: your right to be free, which is individual liberty, which is your individual sovereignty, and to promote personal responsibility or personal accountability, that you must take responsibility for your actions. So I want it to be both free and responsible at the same time. And the country must be designed for young adults, for adults, for seniors, and make it a way of life for people. Organization you're a part of that drives the government that you are a part of. Right now, what are the values of the Jamaican idea? There's nothing that clearly are Okay, I'm back with you now. Lost connection there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me out there on whatever device you're on. Okay, good. I can be heard. All right, so let me see if I can pick up where I left off. I was walking us through a little bit about, what the UIC stand for. I want to get to the diaspora questions and comments, but I wanted to get a few persons from the diaspora on first. I see Mr. Sutherland is still connecting. I see Miss Eileen Besley is connecting as well. So let me go back and share with you my screen. So earlier on, I was saying to you, it's very important for us to understand the values that underlines the organization, the party, the movement, the country that we're a part of. I'm sure most of us don't know what are the values of Jamaica. What is it that we value as a people? What are the values that guided our constitution, the one we have now? The constitution we have now was guided by the principle of master-slave, believe it or not. And that is why at the very top it has the sovereign, the Queen of England then, and the monarchy of England as the sovereign. We the people as subjects. So it's a master-slave value system that undergirded the constitution. So all the laws and regulations and rules that emanates from it still carries that kind of colonial thinking and mindset. And that's why it's important for us not to have a constitutional reform, but a replacement, an entire replacement with a constitution that its entire foundation is based on respecting the rights of every citizen to their life, liberty, and property, that they're sovereign creatures, and that the government is truly supposed to be the guardian of those rights, the protector of those rights, the defender of those rights. And the Constitution must protect us from government that may, lose its way. So the values that undergirds the UIC begins with the idea of individual liberty and personal responsibility. You can say that another way, individual sovereignty and personal accountability. So it's based on recognizing that every citizen is a sovereign individual with rights and responsibilities. The second part of our value system is driven by the idea of equal opportunity, equal rights, and equal justice. So whatever laws we make, whatever structures or institutions we put in place must be done to ensure equal opportunity for all, equal rights for all, equal justice for all. And take, for example, our justice system. It's not equal justice because if you are wealthy, you have greater access to justice. If you're poor, you have less access to justice. Equal rights. No, in Jamaica, we don't have that. If you are wealthy and connected, you have more rights than those who are not wealthy and who are not connected. Equal opportunity. That's not the case in Jamaica right now. If you are not well connected, you will not have access to certain opportunities. If you are well connected, then you will have greater access to opportunities. So the UIC, our value system says no. Our institutions, our processes, our laws, our regulations must be designed to ensure equal opportunity, equal rights, and equal justice for all. And finally, our third value statement is based around the idea that if you're going to be able to be the best that you can be, you need to have a safe, clean, and orderly society. So you'll find that our administration is committed to us having
Hello.
a safe, 1 second, Mr. Sutherland, is going to ensure we have a safe space in which Jamaica, not just some parts of Jamaica, but all of Jamaica must be safe for you to live. So if you live in Tivoli, or in a Kingston, or you live in Hanover, or you live in Westmoreland, it should be a safe space. And it should also be clean. It should reflect the fact that human beings live here and that it should be, clean and well maintained for you to enjoy a decent life. And then, of course, public order is very important. So on that note, let me pause and say, welcome, Mr. Sutherland. How are you doing tonight, sir? You have to unmute yourself now, Mr. Sutherland. Mr. Sutherland. Unmute your mic for me. You can't hear me now. Mr. Dermot Sutherland, unmute your mic for me, sir. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome. How are you doing?
I have no volume.
You can't hear me. Oh, you can't hear me. I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. You can't hear
I
me.
can't hear you.
Okay.
Just barely hear you.
You're barely hearing me.
Can you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, I can hear you fully.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay,
Great.
let me introduce myself then.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, my name is Dermot Sutherland. I'm 84 years old, 8/16/1939 in Clarkstown, Trelawney. I went to school in Falmouth, went off to Manchester. After finishing tutorial college in Falmouth, I went to Manchester at Cobbler Training Center, which is a youth center, which was developed by Norman Manley. I worked here at his office in Kingston and one here with the Government Cricket Board of Control. That was George Edley was the cricket coach. Then I went off to England to do photography. But when I got there, unfortunately, racism was still at its height. So the school I was going, Manchester Amateur School of Photography, I was the only black. My mother was scared of me staying there, so she encouraged me to leave, which was wrong, but that's the love of a mother. I continue on. I had the opportunity wherein I could continue my photography, but due to the obstruction with racism and other things, I didn't continue because the only jobs that blacks could get then was working on the railway or doing menial jobs in factories and other places. I continue on. Eventually, things improve. I started working with the British School of Motoring. I was an instructor for 5 years. And with the open expectation that I'd be a racing driver, unfortunately, after 2 or 3 years, a young white boy told me, Dermot, you're dreaming the wrong direction. So I left it. I was involved in the Transport and General Workers Union also. Well, in 1976, I decided to go back to Jamaica because I think I was equipped with enough knowledge abroad to share with my brothers and sisters. When I got there, the political system was so, I'd say, corrupt or starting its corruption. I got a job through A.U. Belenfanti, who was Minister of Agriculture. He was my ex-headmaster. And I went to Ernest Peart for an interview as a driving examiner. The wage was bad, so I didn't take it because otherwise I would have to go stealing, just as my friend's brother told me that when they fail them at the driving tests, they would tell them, when you're coming back, don't forget to bring the thing. That was Jamaica's existence, still is. Of course, I went back to Trelawney, a little district called Dionvale, which is about 6 miles from Clarkstown, where I was born. I was already chosen to represent them in the parish council election. But when I got there on a Friday night at a meeting at the local school, no, Michael Manley was there. He came down threatening everybody there, if you don't put the PNP in, what's going to happen? Anyway, it was very impressive. But during their speech, everything was said that would be given to the PNP supporters when the PNP win. I was very disappointed because when I went to England, I went as a Jamaican, and it took me 20 years before I knew that I had a color. When the white British start telling me to go back to my own country, you black so-and-so, and every person who lives in England in those years will remember those things. Anyway, at the meeting, when they were stating all that's going to be given to the PNP supporter, and I was disappointed, I stood up and asked, when they win, what will happen to the Labour Party supporters, because nothing was said about them. I was told that whatever is left over after all PNP was given privilege of whatever is there to be given, then something would be given to the Labour Party supporter. And I told them, I said, I went to England as a black Jamaican. I didn't, and as a matter of fact, I went to England as a Jamaican. When I got there, I was a black Jamaican. When I came back with the expectation to share with whatever I had. In other words, the knowledge that I gained abroad, share it with my brothers in Jamaica, and not especially PNP or Labour, but just as Jamaicans. Mr. David Small, am I right? David Brown, I'm sorry, they call him Blue Boots. He was the one who got the nomination for the election. His words to me were, Mr. Sutherland, this is not British politics. And it just shows the contempt that exists in Jamaica for each other, politically corrupt. So I went back to England, then I went to Germany, worked with a company in Germany, and continue on. Made a decision then that Jamaica is not my home anymore. Quickly cutting it short, about 12 months ago in December, I heard Mr. Patterson for the first time on the news media. And what he was saying was what I waited for over 60 years after I went to England, so as to be able to get back to my own country in safety. I'm disappointed because a lot of people are trying to skin him alive, which is so unfair. But I hope that everyone who is listening to this can ask their father and their mothers who went abroad to have an idea what it's like when you leave your own country, because you have no other country except your land of birth. And all Jamaicans can only be Jamaica when they're in Jamaica. Those that went to England, I went there to see my mother because I was told I'm going back to mother country. I spent 30 plus years there and I've never seen her. That's Queen Elizabeth II. And even when she died, I didn't get a chance to go to her funeral. Jamaica mourned for 12 days. England mourned for 10 days. Can you imagine that? They sent money that was stolen from us in Jamaica, from the sugar estates and other farm working facilities. And they wanted to send it back to build prisons. And it wasn't prisons to keep the Jamaicans. It was prison to keep the Jamaicans who learned their criminality in England. They would be deporting them back to Jamaica. And nobody there, no political person, objected to that. It was the people on the street who were rebelling a little, and those abroad in England. I'm just saying to every Jamaican today who has the chance of hearing my few words, if the UIC and Mr. Patterson fail, Jamaica fails. You and I fail. Jamaicans home and abroad fail. And I hope that my few words will have some influence in the hearts and mind of every Jamaican who is listening, because we are in a sorry state. It's wonderful to look at the wonderful roads that are being built by the Chinese. But what's the use in hanging your basket so high when you won't be able to reach it? And right now, the Jamaicans in Jamaica are suffering because the roads that are being built, the monetary gain is going to China. America is bad. England is bad. But during the time when we were suffering, there was no Chinese to rescue us. There was no Russians to rescue us. Please think wisely. Think slowly. And listen to the news media. Read. Because knowledge gain cannot be lost. when I die and leave my knowledge to my children and to my fellow Jamaicans, they won't lose it. But if I leave $1 million to give them, they'll spend it out in one day. So please, take care of Mr. Patterson, respect him to the max, and listen to his words. He's got vast experience. Don't waste it. I want to come home. Even at my 84 years, I would love to come home now, because I've got knowledge that I can share with my village, the youngsters there, community programs. Every one of us that travel has that experience. It's not an experience we were given an easy task. But when we go abroad, we work very hard. So why shouldn't we come home and...
You're muted, Mr. Sutherland. I don't know if we can unmute you. You are muted. You're muted. Yeah. Well, we're waiting for him to reconnect. Let me just welcome some other people here on the Zoom platform. I see VP Powell. I see VP Dr. Coretta Brown Johnson. I see Mr. Clive Patterson from Canada. Mr. Sutherland, if you look at the top,
Pardon?
Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, good. The problem is fixed. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I was just welcoming some other folks who are on the platform here in the Zoom studio. I don't know if any one of them want to open their microphone and say anything. Just raise your hand if you do, and I will give you a chance to speak.
I'll be grateful to answer any question.
Great. So anyone who wants to ask any question of Mr. Sutherland, please raise your hand. Now, I asked him to be on the program tonight because when I spoke to him a few days ago, we spoke for nearly an hour. I was so inspired by the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of experience. And I was saying to him, I can only read about what happened in 1962. You know, I was born 1971, so I missed out all of that period. But for him to have lived in Jamaica, traveled abroad, seen the context of what was happening and how this influenced Jamaica, I found that very useful and refreshing. If you look at the UIC's board, one of my personal desire was to see a board that is as diverse as possible. And so you'll see a mix of ages. We have Dr. Mike Harvey, who is in his 70s. We have, I'm not going to tell you everybody's age now, but we have Sister Janet, who's a bit, I think she's retired or near retired. We have Dr. Coretta, who's younger. We have Naika, who is in her 20s. So we have a nice mix of men, female, and different ages on the team. And so when I meet a person like Mr. Sutherland now, I want to draw out as much of that knowledge and experience that he brings to the table. Because if you don't know history, you are likely to repeat it and even do it worse than before. Because the bad things we did in the 60s, for example, and 70s, we can do them even worse now because we have the technology to do it worse. We can make the situation even more worse than it is before. So I love that opportunity to talk with persons like Mr. Sutherland and so on. But I have some points I want to discuss with you, Mr. Sutherland, about what we want to do with the diaspora. And before I go there, I say, is that a clap hand or a raised hand, Dr. Coretta? You're clapping or you're raising?
Good evening, Sir President. It's a clap hand. Good evening to your guest.
Okay. Wonderful. And feel free to jump in anytime. So some thoughts I have, Mr. Sutherland, is about the UIC's policy concerning the diaspora. One of our fundamental philosophy as a movement is to create a Jamaica that is bigger than just the geographical boundaries of Jamaica. Is to embrace all Jamaicans wherever you are in the world, because the truth is many of us many Jamaicans were forced out of Jamaica because of economic reasons. Some also because of political tribal war reasons. They had to run away from their country. So I don't think we should build a country that punishes people simply because they were forced to leave the country, or their parents were forced to leave the country, and now they became Americans or Brits or Canadians or wherever they are. I think we should build a Jamaica that embraces all Jamaicans, and this is going to serve a number of purposes. Not only will it reconnect us, not only will it make us equals, not only will it be inclusive, but it will begin to correct some of the brain drain problems that we have suffered. It will begin to correct some of the economic challenges by inviting and really including Jamaicans abroad fully in the economic life of Jamaica. It would also give us some of the mental capacity we need in our electoral system by having people who have a broader understanding, broader knowledge, deeper knowledge because of their exposure internationally that they can bring to the table in our political life and development. And I think that will help Jamaica. What do you say to that?
That sounds quite constructive and supportive. But one of the first thing I would say, problem with Jamaica, which possible at this moment, the best way is if you can get a number of police into the UIC to understand that most of the elders who wants to come home are not coming home for a job, but they could be used as community liaisons to teach the youngsters how to be better Jamaicans. And it's not going to college that makes the difference, or university, because what I find out is that most of the youngsters now who goes to university, I say they went to university, I road. Those that go to high school goes to high school avenue or street. Because this is not the time when this community used to teach us. Community is not teaching anyone anymore, and the youngsters are going out without knowledge. You know, and that's what you need the elders for.
I like the idea. I like that idea of integrating the elders, if you will, into the community fabric. And one of the UIC's policy is to really redesign our police force and make it into a police service, whereby the police operates at the community level. So you want your police now to live in the community that they serve, to be a part of the social development. So they're more like social workers, even though they perform a crime fighting aspect, but they really become more a crime preventative agent. So they know the mother and father, they go to church with the family, they are part of the community clubs and civic association. They are agents of the state that parents can turn to if a mother is having problems with her son. He can intervene before it becomes something for which he needs to charge him, you know? And before it gets to a case where it now has to go to court. I call it community policing, which is quite simple and straightforward. But it's really getting the police to operate at the level of the community and being a part of it, growing up with the children. So the children, now a part of making that work, the police has to become a distinguished profession. Not what it is now, where most times people migrate because they can't find the work elsewhere. You understand? And so they become a police because they can't find the work elsewhere. No, you want to make the police something where it's a profession of choice. And when you join the police, you're an esteemed person. You're highly paid, you're highly trained, and you're among those who are of the mental capacity that, you know, can understand psychology and understand sociology and understand community development and the work of a social worker, to be able to intervene and work with the family, work with the children, work with the school, work with the hospital, work with the police youth club, the civic association, and build that community spirit where the police is a respected authority that guides the community to remaining on the side of being law-abiding and respectful and responsible. What do you say to that?
That sounds wonderful. But
Yeah.
one of the things also I would say that would help that cause is to reestablish the Jamaica Youth Corps,
Mhm.
which was started in Cobbler, Manchester. It's spelled C-O-R-P-S, but pronounces Corps.
Yes, right. Peace Corps. Mhm.
And what it is all those young trainee gunmen and misbehaving youngsters would get a chance to go back to a training facility where it teach them to be better men for tomorrow. The women would also have to have something that they would teach in, they would be taught into as well. But I'm just saying that agriculture should be the main subject. Carpentry. I am a carpenter. I didn't start out wanting to be a carpenter. I was an excellent carver. And I don't mean carving that sells on the street. Sculpturing. I was promised when I went to the youth corps to be taken to Mrs. Mandley School of Arts and Craft.
Mhm.
I got to Cobbler, and when they found out that I had good cabinet skills, what they did was go down to Shudley and buy a lot of lumber and give me a little department there to make desk for the political offices in Kingston. On graduation day, when I found out that I wasn't going to be graduate because they were going to employ me there to make those furniture, I get very angry and I leave because I didn't go there to be a cabinet maker. I went there to be an artist.
Oh.
Today I'm a cabinet maker. I does everything. When I get into a building, there's but few things that I can't do. And I'm saying I'd be glad to give the youngsters in Jamaica some of my time, some of my talents, because I can't leave it for my children because it's in my brain.
I would love for you to come to the farm and spend some time with me and teach me some basic carpentry. As old as I am.
Well, the truth is, Mr. Patterson, I am trying anxiously to get there early next year because I am not much in favor of this publicizing adverts because the enemies, your enemies, gets your will and your power and uses it against you.
Absolutely.
Let
me just remind the audience here in the Zoom studio, if you want to say anything, just raise your hand and I will acknowledge you and bring you into the conversation. Okay, continue, Mr. Sutherland.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you know, the situation that goes on there, we are hurting ourselves.
Mhm.
We're not hurting you, we are disrespecting you. Because as I say to many in the little scripts that sometimes I put on my phone, heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they while their companions slept were toiling onwards through the night. And I'm just saying to all of us, while we were sleeping, Mr. Patterson spent many sleepless nights to put together all these plans for UIC and Jamaica. And we should all stand firmly with him and give him our support and understand that each country can only have one leader. So all the other Jamaicans were anxiously wanting to be leader by trying to belittle Mr. Patterson and UIC. We all need to stop because unity is strength. Bob Marley said, one love. John Lennon said, love is all we need. And these are the things we should think consciously of because time doesn't wait for anyone.
One of the things I tell people, Mr. Sutherland, is that I do not have a monopoly on leadership. I do not need to be the president of the UIC or the president of Jamaica, for that matter, or prime minister. What we do need, however, are people, men and women of character. You cannot hope to become a leader of a movement by spreading falsehood, because then you're not trustworthy.
That's great.
You have to have integrity. So if you can't have integrity in assuming, in trying to assume the leadership of something, then nobody should trust you if you should ever assume leadership. A good leader is one who first and foremost is honest. A good leader is one who has integrity, which means you can take them at their word. So a good leader cannot be somebody who is going to falsify information or mix truth and error and seek to deceive. I remember in my early beginnings with the UIC, one gentleman who subsequently left the movement and started another party, he said to me, you have to do things, man, and set things, and when you win, then you can do it the way you want to do it. And I said to the gentleman, I said, if you have to be a deceiver to win, you're going to be a deceiver after you have won, and you're going to be even a worse one, because you have built your whole leadership on deception. And that's going to be leading you and the people in a very disastrous direction. So I've made it my studied purpose to build my leadership on the foundation of honesty and integrity. And if I can't do that, then I'm not going to be involved.
Yes, but encouragement sweetens labor, Mr. Patterson. And if the people who are expecting you to move mountains, if they don't support you, no matter how strong you are, because remember, each hand has 5 fingers. And if you cut one finger off, the hand is literally crippled.
Absolutely.
But it also says again, united we stand, divided we fall. What you need also within these little country parts is community leaders. I mean, myself as a kid, I had so many uncles that I didn't know where to start. I had so many aunties, so many grandmothers, so many grandfathers. Today it doesn't exist. Jamaica's lost its way. But there's many, I'm not the best and I'm not the most. That is so exciting, and I have so much brain work to come to Jamaica. There's many more like me, better than myself as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are many.
You know, with the great determination to prosper. And this is what we need. But the safety of Jamaica is what keeping us back. Because myself as a driving instructor, spent many years both with British School of Motoring and many years in the union system with Transport and General Workers Union. When I come to Jamaica now, I still drive here. And when I get on the road, I don't drive at 8 miles an hour, but I also drive with due care and attention. But Jamaica, most of us are afraid when we get there because of the dangerous condition of the driving due to bad roads.
Yes, yes.
Due to examiners not doing their honest job and teaching the people, testing the people, make sure that they're properly taught how to drive. I have so many friends who lost their life there coming on vacation. You know? So it's a situation where all Jamaicans, home and abroad, has to remember that doesn't matter how far we go, the only land we get that we can love is Jamaica.
Yeah.
I'm in America now. I spent many years in Germany, many years in England, and all those places. I was a black man. But coming back to Jamaica, I'm now a black man again. And that's what a lot of our people needs to know and understand. All those who are exciting and want to leave Jamaica to come to America or England, it's harder here. It's harder than Jamaica. Because when you come here and fight so hard for somebody else's country, and you're running away from your country, my history was not as exposed as today's history is. Most of the things were hidden from us. And we were so fooled that I remember my father getting out many times because he couldn't afford to buy a watch. he would look at the sun and he said, oh, it's near 12 o'clock. I said, Dad, why you say that? He said, oh, if you notice the sun, it's almost overhead. You know, these youngsters are not hungry. We were hungry.
I heard you said something earlier. You spoke about the core. What was it called again? What kind of core?
Youth Corps, the Jamaica Youth Corps.
Youth Corps. Now the UIC has a similar idea, a little bit of a nuance difference. We call it the Youth Employment Solution. Yes, Jamaica. And the purpose of that program, the way we want to structure it, is normally the way it is right now in our education system, which is a failed system. Every year, about 70% of our students or more fail. So they leave high school without the basic subjects and obviously without the basic skill sets, you know, key skill set, you must be able to read and write, communicate, analyze, reason, compute, and so on. So you're talking about 7 out of every 10 child that leaves our school system is lacking in many of those things. What we want to do to immediately arrest that problem is make it that every child that leaves high school that is not going on to university or college or onto some other trades program that is, you know, qualified and so on, that they go immediately into industry as an apprentice. So they're employed somewhere, whether it's in the police, the fire, the hospital, some industry or commerce, some form of established work that they're fully employed in as an apprentice. They're paid a decent wage that will allow them to enjoy the fruits of laboring, but they immediately go into work and start to work. And they're now a part of the various companies and industries and government offices. So they're not left out there, because what I find is happening in Jamaica, when this 70% goes out, a big chunk of them end up becoming unemployable over time. So the longer, like 1 year out of school, you're beginning to forget. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you're forgetting even the little that you learned. 5 years on, they become so uncultured that they're rendered unemployable. They cannot serve on the job anymore. Nobody wants to hire them. They've lost all the fundamental things that school should have imparted to them and which they only learned a little bit of. So we want to arrest that problem at the front end rather than wanting to deal with it at the back end, that now they're criminals, now they've become, you know, hardened by gangs, or, you know, 6 or 7 children with 3 or 4 different men or more gone into prostitution. We want to arrest it upfront by ensuring they move right from school into the world of work as an apprentice, and as they're moving through this process, they can find their footing and find their way in society beyond that point. What do you think of that?
That sounds very good, but one of the things that I would say you should do to back it up, because military is discipline, forces are discipline, and when you get into the youth corps, what is happening? Those youngsters would be spending possible up to 2 years in training. They'd be having parades where they're disciplined in, even in drilling is discipline, you know, and they're taught how to go back into society as respectable young men. You know, those that are there, that there's some that no matter what you do will not be friends of the books. But as the British did to many of us in the past, all schools had a manual training. The British brought all the tools, every tool that you can think of for building. And when a youngster becomes a builder, he has not lost anything out of society. As a matter of fact, he gains more. Because the unfortunate thing about a builder, he's not praised about his building, but the building is praised of how beautiful it is. And it's those same little dirty old men and dirty old women that build those places. So, you know, these are some of the things that should be done.
Yeah, I think one of the solutions that we have thought of, we call it the LEAP program, because, you know, education is the key to building a nation. If
That's correct.
if your education system is failing, everything else fails. It's fully
That's
connected. So what we did in the UIC, we step back and look at what is our education system really producing? For the most part, it's designed to produce workers, persons who leave school and then go and look for a job. It's not really designed to produce citizens, men and women who are thinkers, innovators, creators, men and women who have a good understanding of themselves. So what we have done is to redesign the school system to shift the focus first to three fundamental things. Number one, making sure that the student understands himself, mind, body, and personality.
Yes.
Back in your day, the focus was on ABC and arithmetic, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. We want to shift the focus to first of all understanding yourself, secondly understanding others, and thirdly understanding money and economics. And then within that framework, you're learning the ABCs and everything else. And then you're now learning trade in terms of all the technical things that will allow you to be effective in a modern economy. So that's going from carpentry to coding, right? Carpentry with the tools, coding with the technology. So you're linking the past with the present, and also agriculture, being able to feed ourselves. So we have what is called a complete system, an integrated system of studies. So you're not learning in isolation. You don't learn math in isolation. You don't learn language in isolation. You learn them together. So you're learning to use language effectively to explain mathematical principles, and you're learning physics and chemistry and biology and technology as you express your mathematical understanding. You're using math in the way of, you know, being able to apply those subjects properly. But most importantly, we want to deal with you first as an individual, you understanding your place in society, the reason for your existence, being able to understand your own body, because a lot of the unhealthy behaviors we have in society is because the person doesn't understand how their body works. They don't understand that what you eat and drink, when you eat and drink, what activities you engage in, whether or not that's building your constitution or depreciating it. Is the food you're eating empowering your mind to be able to grasp complex principles and be able to manipulate those things and create positive outcomes? Are the associations you're forming, the relationships you're forming, are they positive or negative? How do you build solid relationships, be it, you know, personal, business, or international relationship, be it romantic or friend relationship, family relationship? How do you build solid relationships that will outlast, you know, a brief moment of frivolity, you know? And so beyond that now, understanding economics. One of the main reasons why politicians have been able to push us into debt and trick us over the years is because the people themselves don't understand economics. So I remember when I was a boy, when the politicians would announce that they're now getting another multilateral loan, and the people used to cheer them. They fly away to America, and they came back and they say to the people, when I was a boy, and I'm young, and they used to come and say they've gone and they have gotten this millions of dollars to borrow and this billions of dollars, and people used to cheer. And I would say to my mom, why are they cheering? Why is it? She said, oh, because, you know, they went and they got some new money to I said, but mom, but it's a debt, isn't it? We have to pay it back. Yes, with interest. Yes. So I said, how does that work? Now, as I got older and studied economics and finance myself, I fully understood what was happening now. But I have a hard time getting people to understand what was done to us. And I'll briefly say to you, when our politicians were able to borrow millions and millions, in fact, over $2 trillion in our name, you have something which is called concentrated benefit and disbursed costs. Here's how that works. A few politicians, let's say right now in the current government, there are 45 of them in the House. If they can come together as a party and borrow, say, billions from China in our name, and in the process, sprinkle some of it around to win an election, spend some of it on building a few structures, and then without us realizing, a fair bit of that trickles back into their pockets and into the pockets of their funders. Now that's a small number, so the benefit to them is quite outsized, it's very big. But the remaining 2 to 3 million of us now, we are going to be the ones that suffer the cost. And here's the cost of corruption. When they borrow, we as a country have to pay back the principal.
Yes.
We as a country have to pay back the interest. Now, if those monies were not spent to increase our productivity, meaning causing our students to graduate being brighter and more competent and more effective, causing our roads to be more efficient for us to transact and do business, causing our police to be more effective at keeping us safe so we can do more business, causing our hospitals and healthcare system to be more effective, that we're healthier. If the monies borrowed doesn't result in that, meaning it doesn't lift our productivity, it means now with the same level of productivity or less, we're going to have to pay back more monies to foreign entities, plus interest, and that now is going to draw away local resources from fixing the road. So we're going to end up with more potholes, fixing the police and paying them properly. So we're going to end up with even police being criminals, fixing our hospitals so they can care for us better. So we're going to end up with disgruntled nurses and doctors who pay less attention to their jobs and treat us, poorly. And we're going to have more corruption in our society, which makes it more inefficient, more costly to do business, and overall less productive. The compounding effect of all of this then is the majority of us enjoying or suffering rather more poverty and more pain, while a small few get the concentrated benefits of those mega loans. As a boy, I tried to explain that to my mother, who was an ardent supporter of one of the parties and couldn't see it. And as I grew older, I could see it more clearly. That's why today Jamaica is where it is. And you're 84 years old, and you have seen Jamaica gone from 66 murders per year in the 1960s to nearly 2,000 and sometime more in the 2020s. How is that possible? Because of what I just said. We're borrowing money, and that money is serving a few special interest people, a small group, but the rest of us are laden with the cost. And the cost is not just in paying the taxes. It is our taxes not being able to care for us, but has to go abroad to pay principal and interest, or even pay local banks principal and interest. So we suffer the cost of that. What do you say to that?
Well, I am not going to, should I say, criticize or make comments, because, like I said, I've listened to you speak on many occasions. As the first time I heard you speak, I was so impressed that I actually thought I was on my way to Jamaica. And I'm saying that, Mr. Patterson, because there's so much things there that Jamaicans abroad now, if we could just get the encouragement in a safe way to return to Jamaica, even though Jamaica wouldn't have enough land space to take its people back.
Can I correct you there?
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard me speak on this before, but Singapore, which has roughly 6 million people, 6 million, their land mass is about the size of St. Thomas. Their land mass.
Yeah.
And they're housing 6 million people. Jamaica is approximately 15 times the size of Singapore, because St. Thomas is one of our smallest parishes. In fact, it is our smallest parish. So Jamaica is about 15 times the size of Singapore. And they have roughly 6 million people living in just one parish. So the truth is, we do have enough land to serve the 3 million at home and the nearly 4 million abroad. We have enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, the issue that we have, which is one you're really focused on, is that the conditions for us to come back and enjoy a safe, clean, and orderly Jamaica just isn't there. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. I can tell you this without any reservation. that as long as the Jamaican people continue to elect the two parties that we have, we will never have a Jamaica, even 100 years from now, where the diaspora would ever feel comfortable coming home. I am certain of that, because they have no incentive to do better. As long as the people get locked into choosing between one of the two controlled opposition, because that's what we have. It's two parties. They're simply controlled by the same master, which means it doesn't matter which one of them is your favorite. Electing them simply means more of the same, the continuation of the same thing. We'll simply go from, I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's a very bleak future, and I hate to say this, but right now the world is moving so fast and we're moving so slow that every year we're falling 5 years further behind the rest of the world in terms of our human development. So the most we can do now is the best and brightest of us will continue to leave. So every year, between last year and this year, we have lost, they didn't put it in this way, but I'll tell you the numbers. We have lost more than 2,660 teachers in 2 years. Okay? The teachers who leave are normally the best ones. They're the ones who, because those who are hiring them are interested in the best. So they'll take the best out of whatever pool of persons apply, and they'll take them out of our country. Every year we're losing anybody that, if a teacher, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, an engineer, an accountant, an architect, a robotics designer, anybody that we teach good here, that they manage to finish university here, once they have the paper qualification and they can speak relatively okay and hold their own, they're going to be gone. Now remember, we're putting out 70% failures every year or more. So every year you have 100 students, 70 are not competent, 30 are somewhat competent, and of the 30, a big chunk of them will be gone. So you're building a critical mass of the wrong type of people becoming the mass of your nation, and you don't have a good mix of the bright and the not so bright mixing to cross-pollinate to create a bit of a balance in the society in our growth. You might not know this, but Jamaica's population is actually now declining. So we're now having negative growth rate in our population. Jamaica right now, if we had grown normally, if we had not suffered from massive brain drain, the population of Jamaica today would be roughly 8 million. Okay, today would be about 8 million. Now we're still hovering around 2.9, 2.8 million. Why? We lose a lot to murders, to migration, and our birth rate is also going down because young people are now smart. It's too costly to have a child here. It's too costly to start a family here. There's also a disparity between men and women. The men are becoming more and more losers in our society, right? They have given up long before they even quit school. They have given up on life the normal way you knew it, about, you know, studying your books and getting an academic qualification and moving on. The boys quickly resign from that. They see that that doesn't work for their dad, it doesn't work for their uncle, it doesn't work for the teacher they know, so they've given up. So the boys are not doing well in schools for a long time now. The girls, for a long while, had still maintained higher standards and, you know, tried to do something with themselves. So you end up with a huge disparity. Good girls and too many bad boys, right? Eventually now, our girls are wising up in a negative way and they're becoming fraudsters. So they're now becoming just as mentally depraved as our boys. So we're building a very, very sad state of human development here. And the longer we allow that to continue, is the more unattractive Jamaica will become as a place to live, earn, or retire. What does that mean for the diaspora? It means you're going to wish and long to come home and live, but it's going to become less of a place for you to want to live. What does it mean for us who are here? It will become a more dangerous place in which to live, because remember, many of the kids now will not be able to find work. AI is moving in globally. So even the little work we get from what you call telemarketing or BPOs, those jobs will gradually go away because now you can replace them with automation. They call the phone, it takes you through a sequence. It's becoming more and more human. So even those jobs that we should have long taken advantage of, We should have 20 years ago been the global space for business process outsourcing. We're just beginning to tinker with it. We should have done that 20 years ago. So now that we're just beginning to play with it, it's going to be gone because AI is going to move in much faster, more solidly. We are not manufacturing anything here, or energy cost is too high. If we have engineers that are leaving too fast, or our farming sector, that's destroyed because we've moved away from organic farming, which was our competitive advantage. We've moved to the kind of farming which we can't compete in because we have to import all the inputs. So we are creating a Jamaica that is going to fail even more unless we decide that enough is enough and tell them time up. If we don't say, no, man, we can't continue like this anymore. And here's the sad part about it, Mr. Sutherland. The local Jamaican population cannot do it alone. They will not rise to the challenge alone. They'll only rise if the diaspora takes over and owns the UIC. If the diaspora decide that they're going to own this party, invest in this party, and use it as the vehicle to capture their country and convert it into a first-class country so that they and their children can come back home.
Well, you see, Mr. Patterson, the things that you've said there are words of wisdom. But the problem is, you're in a country that has X amount of square miles, meaning that you can reach each other much quicker. So the engineering part of the construction of UIC should be done in Jamaica, because I am here and I'm quite sure there's many more enthusiastic members in America, in the UK, in Germany, in Canada, that has great hopes and expectations for Jamaica, but the bonding isn't there. And I couldn't tell you 2 names in New Jersey now. I couldn't tell you 2 names even in New York, but it's quite possible. UIC might have the privilege of knowing 10 people in America. And that's where the bonding should start from, you know, because if I see someone at this moment and I say to them, oh, there's a party, a new party in Jamaica called UIC. What do you think about it? Before I'm rebuked, and not just by UIC, but about UIC. That's Jamaica's mentality. Sorry to say this, I'm a Jamaican myself. And when I speak, I don't speak negative of other Jamaicans and positive of myself. I'm included in there. The bonding needs to start from Jamaica, where UIC has the record of those people. Try to introduce them to John in Connecticut.
Yeah, man, and we're doing that. And the good thing is we have, you know, 3 diaspora groups right now. We have the US, Canada, and the UK groups that we're building out. Now, of course, it's not easy because all of this takes time, energy, and money, right? Resources. The key thing is for a few well-meaning persons in the diaspora to step up. I'm from the diaspora. I mean, I went away, I left Jamaica when I was 23 years old, and I came back. I came back to Jamaica when I was 40 years old.
Well, the saying goes, don't tell me who I was, tell me who I am. You're not diaspora anymore.
No, I'm saying, no, I came back from the diaspora. And so I came back and I give it my all. I've thrown everything, my life, my family, my money, everything at it. And, you know, if persons in the diaspora would just spare a little bit of time, and I want to say hats off to the 371 of you who have donated this year alone. You know, thank God for you. You're the biggest benefit. Without you, the UIC couldn't perform. But we do need more persons in the diaspora to just say, listen, man, I want this, and just step up, get involved, say, I want to donate, I want to volunteer, I want to be a part of this, I want to join this movement, and get involved. Help to start a chapter in your community, wherever you are in the world. We can link you with people. We have a link of people in the UK. We have a link of people in Canada. We have a link of people in the US. We have donors all the way in Jamaicans, in Australia, in Japan, in the Cayman Islands, you know. So they're all over the place. But we have to get serious about making this work. Don't be dissuaded by the fact that it looks so difficult. Remember, if Nanny and Sam Shaw and Bogle and Gordon and Garvey didn't do what they did in the face of all the challenges that they had back then, and don't take it for granted. We right now today, we're not facing anything similar to the kind of challenge that they faced back then to stand up for their rights, to stand up for justice, to stand up for freedom. So you're in your nice house, Mr. Sutherland. I'm in my home sitting here. If we were living back in the day, somebody would come right now and probably just lick down my place and come and pull me out and string me up. You understand? So and they can still do something similar, but I'm just saying we're much freer because of the sacrifice they made. So why don't we make that just a small one? All I ask is for 1,000 persons in the diaspora to give us the equivalent of $25 a month so that we can go right across the country. On Friday, we're going to be in Half Tree right now. We're going to be doing canvassing around that area, talking to people, sharing material with them, and so on. No, this is costly. It's costly on so many levels. It's cost. My wife was just reminding me, she said the piece of car that we use, which is her vehicle, not mine, that we use to do town cry and stuff. The bill came the other day for repair and maintenance, $85,000. That's not paid for by the UIC. That's paid out of my pocket, out of her pocket. You know, when Dr. Coretta drives her vehicle to go to the UIC visit business, is not no donation to help her. She has to find the gas and to pay for when Winston. So all of these things take time and money, and persons will sit there, Mr. Sutherland, and they will think that, oh, Mr. just go do something, just go do that. You can't just do it. It takes time and money to get it done. And you can't come here a political party that gets.
I understand you,
know,
Mr.
Yeah.
I understand you, Mr. Patterson. And if you notice that I'm very slow because I'm one of the yesterday men.
Yes.
And when I speak to you about the bonding of the people, say in America, that UIC knows more than Dermot Sutherland knows, it's for the simple fact that I know that the most important part of building UIC is not with a brick, is not with some concrete, is not with some cement, but it's with money. And if you, the organization, can try to bond us a little more, and when I say bond us a little more, your influence of saying to Dermot and John from Connecticut, try to meet, do something. There's so much we can do here, but collectively, not individually. Because I remember going to a fair once in upstate New York, and what it was called a Trelawney Day. And the first time I went there was about 10 years ago, and I was shocked. At 84, that time I was in my 70s. And I see schoolmates who I've never seen from the day I leave Falmouth School or leave the Youth Corps in Manchester or use the Tutorial College in Falmouth, you know. So I'm just saying that unity is strength. And if we, with your help, Naisha help, Mrs. Patterson help, and all the other ladies and gentlemen who share with you in this program now, we can do quite a lot.
Absolutely.
And make us so busy that we won't have any time to even contradict or counteract the negative people or the people with their negative behavior. You know, it can be made good. I am from a time when my father planted a banana tree. Once it shoots, there's one hand for each person within the community.
Absolutely.
That's how we work. Money weren't very important. Holiday time, we made our own toys as kids. We use pear seed, we use mango seed, we use all different kind of things. Today, what one kid have for the Christmas holiday is more than what we have in a lifetime. So I'm just saying that the unity is what I'm interested in. You know,
it's very,
because
very important. It's
we
and
are,
the thing is, it
we
can
are
happen. It
we
can
are-
happen, but I think we have to be a little bit more, what do you say now? We have to help more, you know.
united. We have to unite together more.
Yes, and
If
yeah,
we unite together,
so
that can happen.
person like, well, for example, we have a group. I see Clive Patterson is on here. He's a part of the Canada group. That group has quite a bit of people in there. Now, it's very difficult for the few people who are working on the ground here in Jamaica to also go and run the Canada group or run the US group or run. So we're depending on the bright, intelligent, smart men and women. When we bring you together, when we create an opportunity for you to come together, we are now depending on you to provide a certain amount of leadership, a certain amount of competences, a certain amount of unifying ability to bring together. So like for me, I don't even know how many more parts to divide myself into. Like one thing I've discovered with our people, and this is very unfortunate, right? We talk a lot, but implementation is a big part of our problem. We don't implement very well. So when you get a group of people together, they will have many ideas, tons of ideas. But when you say, okay, now, all right, put a plan together now and let's implement, that's where they fall apart.
Mr. Patterson,
yes.
that is not a Jamaican fault. That's not a Jamaican disease. That's a black man's disease. No. And when I speak, I don't speak to offend anyone, but if I offend anyone, then I'm doing good to them. I'm hurting their feelings, and it's good. I am saying this because we spend too many years now blaming the white man for her mistakes or her faults. It's long gone. It's time now we unite. I am here in Long Island, and if there's a Chinese takeaway shop down the road, the Chinese man doesn't live in our community. And when you go there, you have to be careful how you speak to him. When you go into the black man shop, you disrespect him just like he disrespects you. And those are some of the things. The average worst Jamaican come to America, not to Canada or to England. If you get a dozen Jamaicans from Canada and a dozen Jamaican from England and a dozen Jamaican from America, I guarantee you the worst behaved will be the ones from America. No discipline, no training, you know. So it's something that I am grateful for UIC, because I'm hoping that in the near future, I might even have a chance to come to Jamaica for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, or whatever it is, because I'd love to be of some interest, some influence, some help within my community.
I'm sure you can, and I'm looking forward
to that. My community, like I said, is a little district in Trelawney. Name is Dionvale. It was one of the only district in yesteryears that had two gates, one coming in, one going out.
Interesting.
It has no gate today, so it's open. But all the people of any influence has never returned to invest in that country. And now if you go to that little district, it's almost like falling apart, because the youngster has no motivational experience, no motivational help.
Oh yeah,
and
everything is
why,
yeah.
This is why I'm so grateful for you and UIC to trying to be able to put us in a state where I can possibly one day sleep in peace and not in
Indeed,
pieces.
not in pieces, absolutely.
Because of Mr.
Absolutely.
Patterson and UIC.
I'm hoping you see, Mr. Sutherland, because I've observed, I've been doing this UIC thing now for the last roughly 10 years, because it has been, the people look at where we are now and I think it just happened overnight. We've been really working for a while, working out the pieces. And one thing I've observed, which really is, it's a lesson in sociology, in understanding our people and our behavior. And it's now a trend. I've seen it long enough now to see that it's a part of our DNA. It's not like we can't do some things. It's what motivates us to do it. So I find we're more motivated to tear down than we're motivated to build up, which is a sad state of affairs. And I'm hoping we can weed that out of our psychology. So I've noticed, for example, during the years that I've been working on building the UIC, if a person joins the movement, they will join the movement and they will be there and they will kind of hold back in reserve their contribution, of time and talent. They'll hold back in reserve. They will quickly develop an attitude of criticism. So for example, they will try to find faults now. Even though we're all volunteering, it's very difficult, it takes a lot of energy and time, and if we don't have paid staff that's going to do all this stuff or whatever, but they still treat it as though you are a full-time employee of theirs, and you should be doing all the things. So they will see, for example, oh, but you should have done this, and you should have done that, and you should have, but they don't make any connection between how do you get to do this or that without having the resources or the manpower to do it. And then they gradually move to a third stage now, where if they now decide that they want to take you down, now they'll work. Now they will work very hard. They will find every energy. They will be able to work day and night to tear you down. So why wouldn't you give that energy? Why, when you come into the organization, why didn't you, if you had that capacity to follow up, to plan, to organize, why wouldn't you give that energy to the building stage of it, but you only have that energy at the tearing down stage? When it's time to tear it down, you can plan, you can organize, you can be continuous, you can follow up. And before you would say, oh, I don't have enough time, I have family commitments, I have my business to take care of. And you're like, how come we are so diligent at destruction, but we can't be diligent at building and construction? And that is something I've now studied. I've seen it over the period of time. And it's, to be a leader in this country, a good leader, it takes a lot of effort. Our people are more, they prefer somebody who's going to condemn. The more honest you are, the more transparent you are, is the more they desire. What does that say? John Maxwell, Leadership 101. And very good. And let me put it in context for you, Mr. Sutherland, so people understand where I'm coming from here. I have a lot of experience. Another one, the 16 undeniable laws of, I have a lot of experience. I've worked. So if I did not, yes, that's what, yes, for sure. Running a proper meeting. Now, what you have just shown me, dear Mr. Sutherland, all of what you've shown me, I have experienced and worked with that in other countries. If I were to measure my leadership competences based on my experience in Jamaica, I would have a severe amount of doubts. I would be questioning myself a lot. But the good Lord gave me some prior experiences where I've worked with Chinese, Indians, Caucasians, Europeans. I've worked in small organizations, big I've been the chairman for multi-million-dollar companies, CEO. I have been on national, for example, I was a the co-chair for finance for the Parliament of the World Religion. So this is like a world religion organization, and I was co-chair for the finance committee on that in Toronto. So I've worked with a lot of people around the world in different constructs, different makeup, different ethnic groups and makeup. And in all of those arenas, very, very successful outcome. So fortunately, I'm not just depending on my Jamaican experience in order for me to assess my competencies. But here in Jamaica, this has been the greatest challenge to every facet of my competencies. And a big part of the problems I've discovered is that when you're working with a vast array of people with different competencies, different background, different training, different socializations, very complex. Because now you have persons who you have brought onto a board, for example, they've never been on a board before. They don't understand board. You just showed a book called Robert's Rule of Order. You know what that book tells you? It tells you how to conduct yourself in a meeting, how to conduct a meeting. It explains to you the principles of governance, how to ensure that your meetings are efficient and effective, all of which I know. As a matter of fact, my last major engagement outside of Jamaica was with a company that has branches in 72 countries, with a board of 18 members, and I was the chairman for that board. Okay, so you had persons from on that board. You had Kenya, you had Zimbabwe, you had France, the UK, the US, Britain, Germany, the Philippines. So very diverse board. No, I've chaired that, and I was elected twice in a row to chair the board, twice. And prior to that, I served as chairman of the strategy committee, chairman of the risk management committee, and so on. So I have lots of experience with all these different people: PhDs, masters, undergraduates, cooperatives, tech sectors, fintech, and so on, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really very exposed. Robert's Rule of Order, which you just showed, fully, that's my bread and butter. I know that. I have been chairing boards forever.
Actually, that's the reason why so much butter is in it at this moment.
So when I come down to Jamaica, you're trying to build a political party, and you bring people together. Sometimes they don't even know that they don't know.
Yeah,
and so they're ignorant of what they don't know, and when you're trying to guide them and teach them, they're also arrogant. So they're ignorant and they're arrogant. And so what they do now, after a while, they develop resentment. So for example, one of the things I used to do a lot of, whenever we have a project, we've just done a project, we'll come back to the meeting. I said, okay, guys, now we have to look at what went right, what went wrong, and who was responsible for what. So we have a project plan, you have, who is assigned a different task. And so I've actually watered it down now, because I realized that level of accountability creates great resentment in our people. So I've actually stopped pushing so hard on that in the organization, because I realized many people can't take it. They actually call that dictatorship. So if you're asking for accountability, for people to be accountable for their roles and responsibility, they will label you a dictator.
That's true.
Like, how do you get dictator connected with accountability? It's the other way around. A dictator doesn't want accountability. A dictator wants to simply tell you what to do. And so these are the kind of challenges, Mr. Sutherland. And so you have persons now like yourself, maybe on the outside, you might be looking at the UIC from a US perspective, or somebody from a Canadian perspective, or from a UK, and you have become immersed in a different world. And you're looking, what is the UIC doing? Why doesn't Mr. Patterson just do this or do that? And you don't have any idea how difficult it is to work with our own people on the ground to move through the different iterations and the different levels and contours of managing and building an organization with many persons who are severely arrogant, and at the same time very, very ignorant, to the point where the resentment may build so high that they may kill you, because they don't even understand what's happening with them emotionally. You understand? And if you don't know and realize what is going on, and even back off some time and allow some space and allow something to fail, or allow it not to go the way you know it needs to go, because you can't push it, because they're just not ready for that kind of thing. I see I thought I saw O'Shane trying to come on. But yes, but we have now exhausted our time. I have another meeting that I have to get to 2 minutes ago. So,
Well, I hope that we can continue this conversation
yes,
another time again,
I
because
hope
you know,
so.
I am very filled with it. I am a person who has never drank in all my life, no form of alcohol, never smoke, never eat meat.
Mhm.
I don't like the doctors as my guidance counselor,
Yes.
because I don't really in my idea, but you know, that's how I go. My greatest medicine is a cup of hot water morning and night, and just vegetables.
Well,
But
let's have a conversation on that, because now you're into my space now. The healthy living, that's something I am big on, and I want to discuss that with you fully. So we're going to come back, we're going to do it again. But I'm now 3 minutes
okay,
into my next meeting. Thanks to all
okay,
online, everywhere, on Facebook, on
yeah,
YouTube, on Zoom, wherever you
yeah,
are. Thank you very much. Remember,
yeah,
one Jamaica,
yeah.
stronger together. Until next time, have a good night. Take care. All the best.
Thank you very much, and thank you all. Yeah. Okay.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.